Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Dara, and today I will be reading Chapter 11 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe. Chapter 11 is titled Freedom and the United States of America. My family and I had never expected to leave this refugee encampment in the Philippines. Fortunately, on a clear starry night, when the military personnel came and took us away, once again, we were hustled into the back of a large military truck. We didn't question where we were going. With fear and anguish, we hesitantly jumped into the back of the truck, as they instructed us, and we were afraid to be asked. It was routinely done by the military to uproot family and relocate them from one area to the next, within the camps. We sat quietly alongside of the family, all praying in whisper and hoping that we weren't going to be another statistic. For all of us, we were expecting the worst once again. The ride during this journey was smooth and at a steady pace, as my brother and I firmly clutched upon my mother's arm, while my sister was also attached to all of us in the dark truck. After several hours of driving, the large military vehicle stopped. From then, we were all unloaded and we were given and issued coats, which we never saw or owned before. My coat was brown in color with the white stripe along the sleeve and across the chest area. My sister and brother coats were blue with the same pattern with white stripe, and mother was maroon color. None of us had ever worn a coat before and never seen a zipper. It was something alien to us then. We were showed how to put it on and take it off. We copied what was taught to us then. It turned out that we had taken us to the airport. I didn't know what an airport was or even saw an airplane up close before. They took my family and the rest of the group inside the terminal and guided us toward the massive airplane that parked atop a large concrete corridor. The armed and military fatigue men handed us several documents, packages, and other identification cards. We were then checked thoroughly by the country's government employees and such. We were then taken up an escalator to our next and stop station. We never saw such thing before in our lives. Everything there was so new to us. We just did what they told us to do and followed what they said and what was asked of us. We didn't question them. It was the way it was. It was all we knew. We were like a bunch of lamb led to slaughter. But then again, we were being liberated and freed then. My family and I didn't show much emotion or feeling about what was happening to us then. We weren't sure where we were going in the first place. During our way up the escalator, a kid around the same age as I had tripped, fell over, and cut his lip on the metal edge of the steel escalator. We all gathered around him to see what was the matter, and because he was bleeding and crying in anguish, some of the uniformed personnel came and took him to get patched up and kept the rest of us moving on our way. We saw so many new things there, from bright lights to computerized monitor, and we didn't know where the lights were coming from because we knew nothing about generators or electrical currents and such. They just kept us steadfast, kept us walking, meticulously marching us to our final destination, to the massive jumbo jet that awaits us on the concrete runway. Once at the designated gate, our identification was once again checked and evaluated. We were then in small and family-sized group and escorted across the hard concrete runway toward the very large metal object and toward its long metal stairs. We all climbed up the aluminum stair, holding firmly onto the rails, and boarded into the massive double-deck jumbo jet, white in color with red stripes along her side. This was a two-story airplane. It had 3 aisles separated by 3 seats, 5 seats, and 3 seats. Each row fitted 11 people, and each of us had our own personal seat. I sat next to the window, my sister next to my brother and me, and my mother next to the aisle in the nearby row where she can easily keep an eye on all of us, her 3 innocent fatherless children. I'm sure mother was relieved then, realizing that her children would soon be free from tyranny and chaos that they all had once lived and experienced. The stewardess and the airplane staff demonstrated on us how to put on a seatbelt, in a foreign language, of course. So we just simply copied what she was doing, and where the other flight attendant would come along and help us adjust our seatbelt, making sure it was snugly secured to our small, fragile bodies then. They showed us and demonstrated how to use the barf bag in case we get airsick. I'm sure none of the refugees had been on the airplane before, so we didn't know about air sickness was, but we found out real fast once we were up in the sky and airborne. The large jumbo jet engine roared like thunder, a sound that very few of us had ever heard before, and the shaking of the bumps and thump as it lifted off from the earth below scared some of us while it made it ascend, and at an angle into the empty space above. People around me were puking up what they had in their stomach left and right. Mother and sister also chucked up some rice and soup they had early in the day, and my brother pissed in his pants, but for some reason, I wasn't affected by the turbulence or plane ride. I held my own and had no physical problem during our ride to freedom that miraculous day. The airplane crew fed us real good during our plane ride experience. We had baked chocolate cookies, nuts, ham, and cheese sandwiches, milk, juice. All this nutrient was new to us. I ate whatever I could get my hands on. It was a new taste for me, but I was enjoying it like a kid in a candy store. I ate the food that my siblings weren't able to consume and savored the taste and experience soundly then, as I indulged myself in this newfound freedom of preservatives and perishable foods. During our long ride and journey toward freedom, we were shown movies on the plane. Of course, the action flicks and films were in a foreign language. Everything seemed to amaze us foreign and newly liberated passengers. We were all in awe and captivated by the pictures and sound that were coming out of that plane and monitors. We never knew such thing existed before, and we were all overwhelmed with our new discovery and such while riding on this massive flying meadow to freedom. Of course, for those who were airsick or scared, they slept most of the way to the States, and didn't really get to experience what I and my younger, impressionable mind was absorbing and gathering, while I viewed and witnessed all that was happening before me. At this time, during the long ride to the New World, I would look out the window and see the vast blue skies above, the open blue sea below. At times I saw large oil tankers and various ships afloat atop the vast ocean fluids. I've never seen any of these before in my life. The trip to our freedom lasted about 24 hours to 28 hours. We landed in America on August 25, 1984, around 1700, and our first stop in the United States was in New York LaGuardia Airport. While flying into the crowded city, it was the first time Anna and my siblings saw the Statue of Liberty. There on the island, all to herself, she stood tall and proud, welcoming us with warm embrace. We saw the brightly lit flames she held during the night we flew into the vast metropolitan town. It was here in the Big Apple that my family and a few others switched planes to go to our next and final destination. The whole group of people in the jumbo jet were separated and then sent to the next final destination. Some were kept in New York, and the rest went about to their other plane within and throughout the United States that evening. Some of the refugees who came on the jumbo jet were sent off to the Midwest, several to the north, and some to the south, and some to the west, ranging from Maine to California. After our brief layover in New York LaGuardia Airport, my family and my identification were once again checked and evaluated, and then we were escorted to and boarded a smaller plane, unlike that of the massive jumbo jet that we all came on from the Philippines. Once aboard and seated in the domestic commercial airplane, instructions were given to passengers about the seatbelt and restroom and compartments. And from then on, we were then flown to Denver, Colorado, early that cool Rocky Mountain morning. Unlike New York, flying into Denver, Colorado was dark and scary, accompanied with much turbulence that shook the plane left and right before landing us safely. After about 4 hours flying a domestic commercial plane and being fed some beverage and snack, we arrived in Denver around 0100 into that cold morning of August 26, 1984. Before debarking off the plane, our package and envelopes were then checked, evaluated, and we were escorted out of the plane and into the Denver airport terminal. Before exiting the plane, a stewardess handed us kids each a plastic-covered deck of playing cards. We took whatever they gave us and vowed to thank them for all they have done for us for our long trip. We all walked quietly and in pace, eagerly off the plane into our newfound land. We will finally reach our first place of freedom. Everyone that was designated then departed the plane through the metal plastic corridor that guided us into the building. Once again, our identification and items was checked to make sure that we were supposed to be where we were supposed to be and assigned to be and designated at. And when we step into the airport waiting terminal, dumbfounded, we all looked around. We looked around the vast open hallway. And my sister recognized a sign which had our last name on it. It was an older American gentleman with a light complexion, brownish blonde hair, and about 6 feet tall or so. He was holding a cardboard sign that was inscribed with our last name, in Cambodian. So Terry, my sister, told my mother what she had seen, and we walked toward the man with the held-up sign. Once we arrived in his presence, we all bowed and he offered a similar gesture of hello and greetings. He told my mom and my sister in English that he was here to take us to a family my mother knew as our sponsor family. Hello, I'm Gary, and I'm here to drive you guys to Vun and John Kim's home in Aurora. He slowly and loudly talked with some hand gesture and soft, gentle demeanor toward us. Mr. Gary then was a pleasant man, and he still is to this day. My sister and mother bowed and returned the word, "Hello, sir." We didn't question who he was or what he was doing there. My mother had received words earlier that there would be someone at the airport to pick us up and take us to our designated home. So with ignorant bliss, we just followed him. He then helped us with our light bags and such and escorted us toward his vehicle parked several hundred yards away from the airport terminal. Later that night, we found out that the man who picked us up was an elder church member and a respectable medical doctor that my uncle knew, whom was asked to pick us up as a favor. He also had a hand in sponsoring us to the States, and because my uncle was busy at work that early morning at the Bar S Meat factory in Denver, Gary was kind enough to go out of his way to pick us up and take us to our first home in the States. The good doctor now is retired and often teaches at the local medical facility university, teaching new and medical resident students at the local university hospital in Aurora, Colorado. He often comes to the Third Christian Reformed Church to speak and pass around the wisdom and words of God and preach about stories from the Holy Bible. His voice is still strong as ever. Every time he speaks, his voice carries throughout the Mass Hall without ever needing the aid of a microphone. Dr. Gary is quite a gentle person, humble and well-rounded in all aspects of life. He's a good man, more than I can say for some that I have gotten to know these past many years. We were taken to the house in Aurora in a gray sedan. We had never sat in a car before. All four of us sat in the vehicle's back seat, timid and amazed from all that had just happened to us. We were all then buckled up and secured as our driver drove and delivered us to our new home. The drive to the house was quiet. We barely talked. We were afraid to. We were so used to the routine of camp life where we don't question or talk to those escorting us. The man looked several times in the rearview mirror, checking on us, making sure we were okay. And I could see his comforting eyes reflecting from the mirror while we sat within the dim surrounding. He sometimes would smile and nod his head as he drove onward toward our first U.S. home. The drive from the Denver airport to our Aurora home was less than an hour, and we ended up in a home off the main street of Sable Street and Colfax Avenue. Once he pulled up to the house, he exited his vehicle and came over to the right passenger side and opened the back door for us. With his arm comforting hands leading us out and toward the home, he then escorted us with our things in hand to the front door and even showed us how to ring the doorbell. Chiming abruptly, the doorbell rang several times. Moments later, a fair-skinned Asian lady opened the door. I had no idea who she was, but my mother knew her. She was a friend of my mother's cousin from the old country. With sleepy eyes and open arms, she welcomed us into the dim-lit house. With several English words and such, she thanked Dr. Gary while he said his goodbye as we bowed to him, with good intention and fortune, on his way back to his home in the suburb. We thanked our courier by bowing several times and wished him much success, and afterward, our hostess escorted us into the house and down the stairs and showed us we would be staying for the night in their basement. She took us to the basement, which had 3 bedrooms down there. We all shared one room. It had a queen-size bed with 2 layers of thick mattresses. My mother and sibling never slept in a soft bed before except me. I had had the chance to sleep in one during my stay in the hospital in the Philippines, when I had surgery in the Philippines. We were all used to the old hard bamboo rack and such. The new soft bed seemed so new to us. It was weird and confusing at first. Of course, we all had a long journey and we were pretty much pooped out and restless. Mom advised us to go to sleep while she stayed up and watched over us while her children slept soundly in their first morning in the United States. Mother stayed up waiting for Uncle, his wife, and brother who were friends of my parents when they were in the Republic Army together back in Cambodia. Although we were not blood related to them, Mother instructed us to call him Uncle, while she would call him Big Brother. So while my mother stayed up waiting and watching over us, her 3 newly liberated children were fast asleep in their new home under the blanket of freedom that they had long hoped for and now have achieved. Uncle came home around 0400 that morning with his wife and brother-in-law. They all worked at the Bar S, a meat packaging factory in Denver. Mother and the adult stayed up for several more hours before turning in for a good long rest that morning, catching up on lost time, talking about the camp life and about what happened to families and friends when the country imploded upon each other during that Khmer Rouge insurgent uprising. The next morning, my sister, brother, and I met the people who helped us with sponsoring us to the U.S. Uncle knelt down and looked at me in my eyes and welcomed my sibling and me. He greeted us unlike anyone we known before, and for a total stranger to do this to us, it was weird, but we smiled. And with our 2 palms together, hand in hand, we bowed to him, a respectable gesture given to elders by adolescents. I also met my uncle's children's so-called cousin. Some were younger and some were older than me. From then on, we called each other's cousin. These were the kids who showed my sibling and me things around the home from our newly found world. The children taught and showed my family how to use the toilet, how to flush it, how to turn on the water, how to turn on the faucet, how to turn on and off the light, the shower and faucet, how to use toilet paper, how to turn on the television, how to use a toaster and such. They even taught us how to brush our teeth. They taught us everything they could think about that we never knew. We were willing and eager with happy thoughts to learn from our younger teachers. With comforting and happy thoughts, my sibling and I now have cousins and people around our age to play with and learn from. We had accepted our newly found freedom, and we look forward to starting anew. And with my young, impressionable mind, I was eager and willing to take on everything. I was a learning fool then. Where have the time gone? I am now stuck and dwell in my own selfishness. All I do now is cry myself to sleep and regret what had happened. When will I be able to return to my once eager and healthy self? I am unwilling to change anymore. I have been stricken with many illnesses now. I guess my past evils and sins have caught up with me now, and I deserve to be where I am at, and yet I'm trying to change. I was so young and vital then. I was the poster boy of good health and joy, and yet I have soiled myself with shame and diseases these past recent years. Not to shit on my own parade, Delilah and I have killed off my beloved Shinshin with my deceit and lies, and yet I still breathe in the very freedom that he had sacrificed to preserve. I am quite shameful for my past deeds against my beloved. I need to make this right. Where can I go? And what should I do to make this right? What is it that I have to do, God, to repent for my fallacy against those I've come to love and lost? You're supposed to be a benevolent God, but you are vague. You're unknowable. You're unreliable. You let good people suffer and lousy people prosper. Thank you for listening. This is the end of Chapter 11. Be on the lookout for Chapter 12, titled School Life and Adolescent Crushes. Until next time, This is Do, Ra, Mi, and I'll see you later. Thank you.